we will be creating a simple surface. Now to start with, we need to know what size we're going to make it. Now I know I'm going to make it 6 inches by 4 inches. And to do that, I'm going to go down to Create Rectangular Shapes. It's this little icon here. And it pulls up these features, and it says select a position of base point. Well, it's going to be the center right there. But I want it to be the center of my rectangle. And I want to set it to be 6 inches wide by 4 inches tall. And I can say OK. Now we can't see it because it's off the screen, so I come up here to fit to screen. Now you can see it in red, my rectangle. Okay, from here I am going to shift to isometric view. There we go. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit with my scroll on the mouse, the center button. Alright, so there we are. Now I'm going to move this down 2 times so I can get some extra spots to create a surface. So to do that, I'm going to go Xform, Translate, select what I want to translate. I'll have to go select all the sides, or window it, whatever would work, and selection. Now this screen pops up, and I want to copy it, but I want 2 of them. And I'm going to make them go down 1/4 of an inch. Okay, you can see the 2 showing up there. That's what I want. I can say OK. Now, if you look at these, we'll shift to dynamic rotation. You can see that they're below the z-axis now. One of them's 1/4 inch, one of them's 1/2 inch. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is, so I can create a surface, is just make points along each of these lines. So I'll go Create, Point, and then Segment. And under Segment we have a couple of options. We can give it a distance, or how many we want to cross each line. I'm going to choose 5, and then if I push this little cursor button, it turns red and locks that in place. So I'm going to come here and I can click, and it automatically will put 5 on each line. If you don't have it locked in, it'll ask you the numbers every time. All of them are there. I'll say OK. Next I will start with a diagonal line across each level, basically each level, so that I have a center point of each of these surfaces. So I'm going to go with the lower rectangle, make a diagonal this way, and I'm going to go with the upper one, or the middle rectangle, and put the diagonal the other way so I can actually see it. We'll say OK. Now I'm going to create, basically our surface is going to look like it's going to be raised in the middle, but come down flat with all the edges. Maybe like a little jewelry box lid. So let's try that out. So I'm going to create. I don't even have to click create. We can go spline. You can go create spline. Manual. And I'm going to start with the middle point here. Then I want to go up to the midpoint of this line. And to do that I can come up with this little button here and change it to midpoint and select the line. It's the midpoint, and then down to this line. And say OK. Now I could have made this without even dealing with these points, and in another section I'll show how to make like a wavy surface with these points. Alright, so let's go ahead and create the other cross section here. So create, spline, manual spline. Once again you could have just pushed the button. Middle point there, and I can say midpoint. Click on the midpoint of this, that medium layer, and then down to the bottom. And check for OK. Now we'll go dynamic rotation and see, you can kind of see it there, it's kind of bubbled up in the middle. Alright, so now we will go ahead and create the surface. So we go Create, Surface, and we can do a net surface. Now the first thing it asks for is the along. Now I know it's longer in this direction, so I'm going to go partial and say along there, end, along there, end, and there, end. Now I'm going to come up here and say across, and go across, and across, and across, and. We'll say OK and see what is created. Now you can see the little blue lines that go across. It's showing kind of a crosshatch, cross section, maybe a wireframe. Now you can see it there. I'll stop the rotation. Now one thing that we can do is we can come up and change it to a shaded dynamic again, and you can see that it's actually raised up. Or you can shade and unshade. You can do the same thing with Alt-S, toggles it on and off. So now we've created a simple surface.